Hello and welcome back to the Obojima Podcast. My name is Jeremiah and I'm with Adam today, and we're the writers of Obojima. You are joining us for our weekly writers meeting where we sit down, we chat Obojima, and today we are getting into spells? We talked about spells before, but this is a specific flavor of spells. We're just going to sit down and jam on them. What I want to talk about is spells specifically inspired by kind of like maybe first stage tech or things like it. Like spells that really feel like Obojima.
Yeah.
And so I have a list of spells that I'm concepting some spells now.
Excellent.
And I will pull them up and we can chat about the ones that I have already come up with. And then maybe we can sit down and come up with some new ones.
Cool. Sounds good.
Okay, so I can start talking about one of them here. And this is just me thinking about how, I did a video a while back by my lonesome where I talked about inspiration and talked about syncing your spells in your world. Like how to if you're going to create a new spell within your world, how do you make it feel like it really springs from the lore and the culture and the people? And I go through a couple different topics, but one of them is by, D&D's version of this is the named spell. So like Mordekainen's blah, 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 blah. Melf's acid arrow, right? Yeah. Like it is giving you history on the spell and saying like, this was created by a person and you could go and learn about that person. And this is painting a broader picture of the world without necessarily having to, tell you that. It's the Star Wars like tell don't show type situation where you just like, hey, look at this thing that exists. I'm not going to explain it, but it happened. And that does some amount of world building. And then there's also spells derived from factions, like the postal brigade, right? The Courier Brigade or the Mariners Guild coming up with their own unique spells specific for doing their line of work, which then expands beyond their organization. And then also spells derived from subclasses that have since begun to be practiced outside of that subclass. Yeah. Spells like Origami Swarm, which, was most likely created by an origami mage, but has since taught outside of that subclass. And so thinking about that, now I was thinking about maybe a nether type of spell. I don't know what you would call this, but maybe spells inspired by the objects found within Obojima. And so one of these spells, as I'm pulling it up here, was playing with the stop signs in Obojima.
Oh, okay, yep.
And so I've named it aptly stop sign. But the concept is that you would summon a stop sign in battle and you would pick a creature, and that creature has to make a wisdom saving throw, and if they fail, they can't move towards that stop sign.
Oh, whoa, okay.
And so it's almost like this battlefield control where you can kind of plant a totem somewhere within the space and maybe stop one or several creatures from going to it, or they have to, maybe every time they try, they have to make a wisdom saving throw to get close.
Okay.
And so maybe it's not like a fail and then you just never can move close to it. Maybe you have to do it every time you attempt to move towards the stop
so it's
sign.
Like a repetitive, like every round or to return, you've got to make another check to see if you can break the. Makes me think of the red light, green light game. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I watched Squid Game.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. So that's cool. I mean, is it a spell that you can? It's just towards one like sentient creature, like an intelligent creature, or can it work on animals and beasts?
I think you can cast it on any creature.
Okay.
And then I think you can maybe upcast it to where multiple creatures can't move towards the stop sign. And then maybe the stop sign can be placed. Maybe it's summoned where you are. Maybe you can summon it within like a 20-foot radius or something like that.
And it lasts for, and then it just kind of disappears, kind of a deal.
Yeah. Okay. But what I like about this spell is it gives some sort of inclination as to maybe how a mage who discovered a stop sign, like in Yadaman or a different first stage city, and then was like, like inspired by this obelisk placed by an ancient people, and then translating it into what they might have assumed. Like they, or not, maybe they understand later down the line after research, like, oh yeah, this was to stop vehicles or something like that. But I like the idea of like interpreting this unique bit of information left by the first age, and then it being the catalyst for a spell.
It makes me also think like you could create like an in-world game that people have played like during a festival, like and I don't know how Obojimas would interpret it, but like maybe that's another use of this spell, where there's this game that gets played where people, there's like two teams, and then they've got to like the simple version is like capture the flag, and everybody's trying to capture the flag, but there are like two wizards or witches or whoever that are on either's team, and they get to cast this red light, green light spell. And it's just this, everybody's getting paused, and I don't know.
That's pretty cool.
Something crazy about that.
I do like that.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
And it could be like multiple signs. Like maybe everybody's they can have one cast of this spell. Maybe they have a wand, or maybe they have a potion they drink and they can cast it. So it's not just like witches. Maybe witches all brew the potions and then they give them to the general public. And the general public gets to have fun casting this crazy spell that they would never normally be able to do. And so it's just a good time for everybody.
Maybe everyone has a cassette with the spell loaded on it, and they can click their Walkman as they're running around to cast it.
Listen to some Sammy Hagar or Van Halen as they cast the spell.
So that's one direction. I think another one that I thought was kind of interesting is a spell called Rubbage, and this was this was me thinking about Yadaman, and thinking of how a problem a lot of major cities have, which is how do you get rid of trash? How do you effectively get rid of garbage? And like in a fantasy world, most garbage is biodegradable, right? Like you're not making plastics and things like that. But like, so how do how are you getting rid of garbage in Obojima in some way? And so I thought of this idea that you almost like you summon a spirit, like a minor spirit that consumes all the objects in like a 5-foot space. And so it's like, maybe it's like a cantrip that people know, or it's like, oh yeah, you summon one of these like shark spirits, or one of these like maybe it's like a worm or something like that, or I don't know what eats garbage. I guess sharks and worms. Sharks and worms. Everyone knows they eat garbage.
Makes me think of I'm in Ghostbusters. I call him the green spirit.
Oh,
you're like Slimer. You mean Slimer?
Yeah, that was wild.
So yes, and I do remember now Slimer, but like Slimer spirit,
the most iconic of all the ghosts in Obojima, or not in Obojima, in Ghostbusters, the green one.
Yeah, that tall pointy tower in France. You mean the Eiffel Tower? Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, but yeah, like a Slimer spirit, or like in Dungeons and Dragons, there's like OTUGs. They're just like these weird looking monsters that you just throw trash, and they usually hang out in trash pits.
you throw trash in there.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, also like in like a big city like Yadaman, that will probably be the one place in Obojima that generates the most rubbage.
Yeah.
That there would be, maybe there's a I don't know, a group of people. It could even be a miniature guild that knows this spell, and they go all throughout the town and they cast that spell.
Are we making garbage collectors?
Maybe. Oh yeah. But there would be or it could be that you kind of want to do it because maybe there are some cities, Yadaman included, where if you let it stack up, you're going to attract something like a howler band that might come out and kind of snuffle through your pile of leftovers or scraps.
It could just be like a service that people offer, where it's like it's less like of a guild, but like a couple locals might have learned this spell, and they'll walk around to businesses and be like, "Do you have any garbage for 3 sea petals, I'll take it away. And they're like, all right, cool.
Yeah. It could be like you go to a market and you find the person who's selling potions or cassettes or floppy disks that have this spell on it. And you like, I'll take 3 of those, for the week. And you go and you buy them at the market and you go and then you can cast your own spell.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it could be like a stall, like in the Yanari spirit market, like
that's
a
pretty
witch's
cool.
market. You could do that.
I like the idea of if when you cast the spell, this is something we never put in the spell description, but I like the idea of when you do this, it's the same spirit that returns every single time. So it's not like or maybe it's like, oh, actually, rather than it being the same spirit, maybe it's just one spirit. Maybe the spell everyone summons the exact same spirit.
just eating all the stuff.
Just eating all the trash.
Yes.
He loves it.
Yeah.
That's good. Alternatively, you would have your own spirit that's like of this type. And so you'd almost like name it. Like this is like,
I mean, it could be,
this is Gachapon. he eats all the trash.
I mean, it could be that, the spirit, I mean, depending on how spirits are called from the spirit realm to the physical realm, I mean, maybe this spell, when you cast it, it's like the closest spirit in the spirit realm to that location will then come in. And maybe there might be territories, like if you go into the spirit realm, it's like this garbage loving spirit, just like this is
garbage.
It's a garbage loving spirit. Like just
hey, don't talk about Ari when he's not around.
Right. He does love his garbage. But
every day he texts me before he goes to bed. Look at all the garbage.
Yeah, look at just like swimming back, stroking piles of trash.
He loves it.
He does.
Building out lore for Ari when he's not here.
That's right. When you're not here, Ari, we're building lore around you. So, but yeah, it could be something like that. So I love the idea of a returning spirit. And maybe the spirit, like at the end of the week, is just like,
it's just too much. But so I feel like I've painted the ideas here, like trying to use the world as inspiration. Yeah. So then the question is like, what are services or things that Obojimans would want a spell for? Like, what's a kind of like technology for us, right? We can't get place fast, we make car, right? Like that's how that go, right?
You want to go place?
Yeah. I guess train first, or train first?
Well,
same time?
Horse and wagon?
Yeah, I don't know.
Horse.
You get horse.
Yeah, you get horse.
You get horse.
You get great horse.
Point is, right, like in a need in our world, a need comes and it is often solved by magic, most likely. So what spells what problems do Obojimas have? Now, the thing is when you do this, often you'll find yourself just like solving small problems that like no one wants as a spell. Like, this like, this spell boils my tea. And everyone's like, okay, no one's ever going to use that.
Yeah. I mean, you think of like Tensor's floating disk. Mm-hmm. That would be great in Obojima because you're just like, loading a bushel of wheat or something like that. And you use it for lugging around farm stuff or like digging dirt and then moving the dirt out to the garden. You could use a Tensor's floating disk, but that also translates into like a great tool for an adventure.
Yeah.
So is it more to think about what would be a cool adventuring tool and then kind of reverse it back to like something that's useful in an Obojiman society?
Maybe.
It's going to be hard to think of one that's outside of what Dungeons and Dragons has already got. So like, well then here's another thing. We don't have to necessarily solve problems. We could also just use inspiration from the world. What would be like a fish summoning swarm type spell, right? Like that's something Obojimans would see quite often. Are these flying fish? So how do they utilize either summoning those fish or summoning a spell like them? Now, already I tend to lean towards a lot of area control within my spell creation because in combat, when you don't want to have, when you don't want to fight, you
move people around and you stop them from fighting, right?
Yeah.
Like those are these spell options that you have. And so that's often what I'm leaning towards with the combat spells. But how would you use a swarm of fish outside of combat? Is it like a movement type thing where like you summon the fish and it like wraps around a bunch of people and takes them a distance? Do you make a path of fish that you can step over, like you make a bridge of fish that you can utilize?
That's cool. I mean, it'd be a slippery bridge, but you could still do it.
Do you summon the fish and then you hold on to it and it swims you through water at like 150 feet,
like one big fish
in 6 seconds?
Like, like dolphin, like riding on the dolphin. You could. I mean, it could also be like fisher folk could like summon a school of fish if they're like spirit fish. Mm-hmm. So they're not edible, but they could attract other fish. So you're using it. The practical application is to attract fish so you can actually fish and bring back food for your family. But in an adventure situation, you could use it to distract. You could just I remember scuba diving and swimming in a bait ball.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just like probably hundreds of thousands of fish, just enormous, as probably
fishing around.
As big as this room, and you go into the middle of it, and it's just this bewildering, like reflective fish, and you can just barely focus. It was unreal. So you put a monster in that, and that would be crazy for them. They would, and you could get out of there or whatever you wanted to do.
So maybe that's a spell. You summon a swarm of fish in an area.
Yeah.
And it is almost
Confuses,
like dazzling, confusing. It could be a situation where maybe, now this will make the spell longer, but it could be like you pick a couple options. It's like like Bigby's hand.
Cool.
You can kind of do like pushing hand or forceful or grasping or whatever.
You could like summon a ton of small fish, like a bait ball, to confuse or one big honk.
One big fish
that you hang on to, and you can swim up to like a top of a tree or something.
I dig that.
It's cool.
What about a spell that summons a fish around your head? Like it's like
call it fish head.
Like it's like a fish that is. I'm imagining neck up, large fish. Like you snap your finger and it's wrapped around your head, and maybe it's just like
you're just a big old.
I'm imagining it's like it's blinding the character. Maybe there's a little bit of damage, like as it's like sucking or whatever. I don't know.
I was thinking also like you could impersonate a fish folk. Because if you've got a big fish head, that kind of looks like the lionfish king, and it could be like, could try to infiltrate the fish folk with my giant fish head.
I mean, yeah.
I mean that's one way, but the other way is an actual fish that is biting your head.
Yeah.
Okay. Like an attack fish.
I also like the idea of you doing the spell where it's just a fish swallowing your head, but then you try to impersonate a fish.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I wonder if, now to do a tangent, I wonder if there's an NPC or a character who has a mask that looks like a fish head and impersonates a fish folk in some way.
Yeah.
Like either to do harm or to do good. Like maybe there's like a heroic character that's like, there's a fish folk, like it's a, Avatar, the painted lady.
Oh, okay.
Or the blue spirit type situation where they're both kind of masquerading as a different character.
Okay.
It could be like there's like a vigilante fish folk person who fights back against other fish folk or whatever it is.
That's cool. Yeah. As you're saying that, it makes me think of, because fish folk, attack, boats and they're kind of a menace. There's probably, cautionary plays and, that are told in little villages where people have fish folk heads when they're like, I'm the fish folk and I'm gonna steal you from the beach, and all like the kids that are watching the matinee or they're like and then they're like boo, and then the hero comes out and she like beats off the fish folk or whatever, and he's like okay, and he runs off. But maybe there are these sort of stylistic costumes that actors wear for these kind of pantomimes or whatever they are, but then it's like one of these, maybe it was an actor turned vigilante that has become this Batman or Fishman, as it were, who actually goes out and does acts of goes infiltrates the fish folk and then, disarms their devious plots from within.
It also could be interesting if they traveled across Obojima for stories to start popping up around, like, there's a fish folk inland. Like, they're not on the ocean. Like, they're running around. Like, I saw them fighting some howlers.
Yeah.
One lone fish folk.
So is this fish head like a magically, like they actually look like a fish folk, or is it a wooden mask that looks vaguely fish folk like from a distance?
I think from a distance they look fish folk.
So nobody really knows. It's like Zorro.
Yeah.
Like, who was that?
Yes.
There's rumors.
We are talking about spells, so we shouldn't keep on doing this. We'll come back to this person.
Yeah, this is good.
This is good. Okay, so here's a couple cool ones. These are some interesting ones. I was thinking of like a cantrip that creates a ladder out of vines, which I thought was kind of interesting. Like, I was imagining like exploration through Obojima is probably pretty important. Maybe even getting up to on roofs in Yadaman or other big cities. And just being able to snap your finger and have like a vine ladder grow for like, I don't know, a minute and then dissipate, I thought was really interesting.
That's cool. I mean, super handy for doing stuff like rurally as like a farmer, or, you're taking care of a village or something like that. But then it's also great for adventuring. Like, I think about like, mountaineers that take the ladders to kind of cross cracks in the glaciers. Yeah. Like you could, maybe this ladder thing is like wherever there's any kind of vegetation, you can kind of summon it forth to like create ladders or bridges, or, it maybe could be quite versatile in how you can use it. But maybe it's limited to that if you go up, say, up on the glacier of Mount Abora, you don't get to use that spell. Like, maybe that's one of the limitations of it. I don't know.
It's kind of interesting
because it would be it's one of those spells that I think players would get super creative with it and create all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah. So
I like it
because it could be kind of powerful.
So something else I just thought of. I used to play a game called Mutants and Masterminds.
That sounds awesome.
Solid game. Very fun. I think it's by Green Ronin.
Okay. They're awesome.
And it's a superhero game. And I used to play. It was actually the game I started playing before I played D&D. I played this when I was a kid. And I played a character who could control electricity. Coolest of superpowers. But one of the things I could do is my character.
No,
my character.
It was
me. During this time, I also had powers.
You were also a mutant.
No, my character could control electricity, so they could do a lot of things like operate machines from a distance, or I could fly on like a metal disc, and I could shoot electricity and do cool things. But one of the things I could do is I could transmute through electricity, so I could turn into electricity and go in through like an electrical socket here and then pop up on the other side of the city. And I don't necessarily want to introduce a lot of transportation spells in Obojima. Okay. Because I think it kind of gets rid of some of the mystique and the like if everyone could teleport, no one would be walking across the island, right? But something that's interesting is maybe how you interact, like having another spell besides Jolt that lets you interact with electronics in some capacity. And so maybe that is like maybe it's a situation where if you're touching some sort of electronic, you can communicate through another one that you're familiar with, kind of like divination spells. Yeah, so divination spells like scrying is like if you're familiar with a creature or familiar with an area, you can kind of scry onto it. So what if it's like if you're familiar with a object that has like a speaker in it, you can speak through it in some capacity.
That's interesting.
I said it. Oh, now that Miles has pointed it out, I'm going to go crazy. Miles the other day pointed out that I say in some capacity all the time. And now every time I say it, I die a little bit on the inside.
In some capacity.
In some capacity, I die a little bit on the inside. I just said it now. It was the first time I'm hoping for this episode, and it'll be the last.
We need a little in some capacity score at the bottom of the thing that goes ding, ding.
Don't do it. People are going to bully me.
57 in some capacity.
I don't want it. Point is, though, I think,
Yeah.
maybe we can kind of take some of this divination magic, which is, I think, fairly lacking from Obojima, and maybe introduce it and mix it with some first stage technology. And so maybe it's you can speak through objects that have speakers, like a TV or a speaker or even a Game Boy. And that also, what that does is it gives you a reason to want to keep some of these objects on you. So if you're out in the wilderness and someone's like, oh man, I found maybe a Walkman is a little too easy, but maybe I found what's a thing that has a speaker that's inconvenient to carry?
Like an actual giant stereo speaker.
There you go. I found a 24-inch subwoofer.
Yeah, it's just like a giant car subwoofer.
Or it's like, I found one of those one of those old plastic games where you insert the cartridge and you pull it and it's like the cow goes moo.
That's right, you pull it at the string.
Yeah, you just have one of those on you because it's like, well, if I keep this on with me, the witch can contact me from any distance.
That's fun because in the cow goes moo thing, it's like there's all the different animals in the sort of the circle and you've got to turn it to I'll turn it to the cat and then the cat goes meow. But
the cat also goes moo.
Yeah.
All the creatures go moo.
You're like, what? That's what all these first stage animals would. But the thing is, you could have somebody who's on the cow channel and then you kind of mix it up and nobody else knows. So it's like a secret thing. Like you could just switch it to the cow, pull the thing, and then the person's like, hey, I know. The other thing would be that Yadaman or any of the first stage cities have they're all dead, like the electric cables and stuff. There's images, I think. Are there any images that we have up here on the wall? No. There's some in the book though where you see telephone poles and there's wires. But if you ever watched or heard people tell stories about ghosts or watched Ghost Hunter or something like that, they're saying when there are these incredibly emotional exchanges in a room, it gives off ghost energy or whatever they call it, psychokinetic energy or whatever, and it goes.
They call
into
that green spirit energy.
Green spirit energy. When you have green spirit energy, and then who are you going to call? It seeps into the walls and it gets stuck in, and that's why they, one of the theories, as ghost theorists say, that's how these rooms become haunted. So you could have a situation where if somebody has this spell, they could touch an electronic device, or maybe it could even be they grab a power cable or touch an outlet, and maybe in Obojima, they say that these might be portals to the spirit realm. The outlets, they're like these little holes or the wires might be paths that spirits move along. They could have a whole sort of mythos about them. But if you tap into one of those, maybe you can divine what happened in that room, say a year ago or a month ago or whatever.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you're actually picking up on a replay of what the energy was at that. It's sort of also how they've done this thing where your router is actually sending out, high energy, high frequency energy, and you can actually see who's in a room through your router. Because it can see through walls and stuff. You're here in a room, and then your router is sending internet through your wall. So that's one of the things, maybe spirits work at a high frequency, and so you could actually scry or view. You could grab onto an electrical cable. That electrical cable goes to a room that's 400 yards away, and then you can actually see what's going on in that room.
That's interesting.
Some weird stuff.
Just some weird stuff. Yeah, I like that.
I'm really going out on a limb here. I'm pushing it.
I dig it. There's something interesting there. Maybe one of the spells is just the internet. You just gain access to the internet.
Was it? I guess it would be in the early late 80s.
Very late 80s.
Yeah.
Well,
mid 80s.
Yeah. Didn't the military have the internet?
Yeah.
Before in the early 80s, mid 80s.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, because I remember time before the internet. It was weird. You would get in your car and you'd drive, and that was it. You had no cell phones, you had nothing. Yeah. Nobody know where you are. You call your buddy and be like, hey, well, let's meet at McDonald's at like 11 o'clock. And you had to use like your mechanical watch. And there was no like, crazy nonsense. It was just, and you just show up and you just be like, well, I hope he's here. If he's not, there was I couldn't call him up or send him a text. But yeah.
It's like that skit of the two people before clocks were invented talking about when they should meet. You and I meet here, sun there, this time tomorrow.
Yeah, that's basically
what time?
It.
Sun there.
Sun there.
Right there?
Yeah.
What if I'm not here? I'll be here.
Yeah, sun over a big tree. That's cool. I think there's a ton of stuff that we could do with electronics. Like I love the idea of like being able to speak through a TV. Like you turn the TV on and you whelm it, or I don't know, maybe there's just some other magic, or you cast the magic spell and jolt, and then that TV can connect to, I mean, if we want to, we can just say it's just sort of connected to that other person.
Yeah.
Or we could say that person has to have a VHS video camera and they have to use that to connect. I mean, we could go that far if we want.
Yeah. No, I dig it. I think the thing you have to be careful with is not getting too prescriptive with the objects, because then it limits what you can actually do with it.
Yeah. I like there being a lot of magic involved.
I really like the idea of you messing around with electronics. There's maybe some sort of like light bulb, like some sort of spell that has to do with like the light fixtures or the neon signs or something like that. Could be, maybe you just make maybe there's a spell where you summon an old fluorescent tube light that you bust over someone's head. You ever bust one of those?
Oh man,
so good. So much fun.
Is there something we could do with, where you have like the high tension lines and you hold up the fluorescent light and it fluoresces? Is there something where maybe a fluorescent tube actually acts as like you could hold it up and you could summon a spirit in there and you could catch a spirit, and then that spirit could be, like...
Okay, well, this is an interesting conversation. So we've been talking about spirits, minor spirits, and demons off camera quite a bit.
Yeah.
And like that kind of the objects used while interacting with them, and kind of some of those conversations, harkening on like what a Obojima would use to deter or deal with small pest spirits or demons and things like that. But some of the conversation has kind of shifted towards sealing. And we actually touched on this also in the Pumpkin Island podcast episode, where we talked about this idea of witches summoning or maybe sealing these spirits as they travel into the physical realm inside jack-o'-lanterns, which then act as like animated little things for them. And so, this is a long-winded loop, but it gets around to, is there a spell that lets you maybe bind or seal or interact with minor spirits? So I'm thinking kind of like how clerics... Just touchy subject.
Yeah. Oh no! Alert!
And kind of how clerics have deter undead, or not. That's not the word. Turn undead. Deter.
Deter. Yeah, that's the nice word.
Turn undead.
Destroy undead.
Where below a certain CR level, the thing takes effect, right? And so you can almost have a spell where it's like if a creature's below if a spirit is below a specific CR, you can do certain things. Like if it's a minor spirit that's below CR1, you can like bind it, and maybe it turns into like a physical object temporarily. Where it's like, it's a pest spirit. I cast capture or whatever, and it turns into like a little toad, like a little trinket. Like it clicks down, and it's like, it's like a wooden carved version of the spirit.
Neat.
And it stays like that for, I don't know, maybe 8 hours, and then it breaks and it runs away or whatever. And then maybe if it's like, if it's above a CR, like let's say it's CR 1 or higher, maybe that spirit isn't turned into an object, but is instead frozen in place for a minute. And then if it's CR 5 or higher or something like that, then the spirit is maybe slowed. Right? So it's like, depending on the CR, different effects occur. And so you don't quite know maybe where the spirit is. You're always hoping for it turning into a trinket, but maybe you can just slow it or something.
Interesting.
And so the spell, depending on where the CR lands, kind of has different effects. I think that'd be interesting. But you have to be, I think you have to be careful with building spells into this, because if it affects spirit types, then the human, because spirits are in a wide range, and they it feels totally fine and normal for you to be like, oh yeah, I'm using this on a spirit that is the equivalent of a squirrel, compared to like, I'm using this on my barber. Like
slow him.
You don't want to like, oh man, you turned your barber into a little totem. That's just kidnapping.
That's just. Maybe. So maybe we do say that you can only do it on pest spirits or animal spirits, or
maybe it's like it could be like a intelligence
I think
type
so.
situation, but you don't want to put too many riders on it, so it can't be like. I think
anything above intelligence 2, then or 3. I don't know what the cutoff is for actual like self-awareness.
I think 6 is when you become like human-esque intelligence.
So 5.
I think 5 and lower is like more animalistic.
So that means like when I wake up in the morning, I'm kind of at 5. Just like, and then I slowly gain self-awareness.
There's something there.
I think it's cool. I mean, another thing is like, what if, and this might be a whole nother kind of economy for the game, and I don't know if we want to open up that door, but it's like, imagine, I remember I used to play a game called RuneQuest. It was, it's still kicking. You love some RuneQuest.
Who doesn't love RuneQuest?
Oh, sweet, man. All right, so you know about Glorantha and all the
RuneScape. You're talking about RuneScape or RuneQuest?
RuneQuest.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's by Cassium.
Yeah.
So super cool game, and they had this concept of power, and so instead of wisdom, you had power, and power was sort of like your magic ability and how much magic you had. And you could create power crystals if you became a rune priest. You could create your own power crystals, and you could store your spirit power inside of them, and you could use, because power was the number that you used to cast all your spells.
Yep.
So if you want to cast healing 4, I guess I'm saying this for the audience because you already know this, but it's like, so maybe you could use spirit energy. You could hold up your fluorescent tube, suck in spirit energy, and it's like a power crystal. And then you're using that number, whatever you pull in, to cast spells or to do something or to create an effect. It could be as simple as casting a spell, or it could be that we create another economy for Obojima that's just specific.
Interesting. So it's like it makes me think of water bending, the blood bending arc that Katara has, where before they get to blood bending, they get to the point where she's like, oh, there's, like the crazy old lady is like, there's water and everything, right?
Yeah.
And then she like goes to a field and like sucks the water out of a bunch of flowers in like a circle, right? And it kills all the flowers, but you get like a little bit of water that's in there. And so I almost wonder if it's like, you can like you can kill something, you can draw something, you can take something to gain something.
This is this could actually lead into like a demon conversation.
It's interesting.
We maybe put a pin in that for demon chat,
and maybe it's a spell that's like looked down on, where it's like, you don't do this.
It's like you're tippy toeing. Like, I mean, when Katara was doing water bending, I mean, it's sort of like what's the line, between you're doing something that's totally within the harmony and boundaries of nature, and that isn't causing any kind of damage or using it as a combative. Yeah. It's like, even, I mean, Avatar, everybody knows now we love Avatar.
We talk about it way too often.
Aang is like firebending and he's getting mad, and then he hurts Katara and he's like, oh, and then it's kind of like don't play with fire, you young one, don't like also watch anger, because if like the anger or the frustration gets let out too far, you can damage. So there's a great like storytelling vector here with this spirit energy. It's like you can use it, but it's a slippery slope, because maybe this is a place where you can actually get a lot of power. And that's the temptation for the players. Because I love to give players temptation like that.
It could be a situation where it's like there's not a full understanding of what you're stealing.
Ooh, yeah, that's great.
Where you're like, you're getting this, but like even the mage who created this doesn't like. What are you what are you taking from?
Yeah.
Like
some people might be like, oh, it's just power. It's cool. Look at all the cool stuff you do it. And other people like if you walk on the spirit realm, you'll see something dies there, or something is withered, or something gets damaged and then has to recover because you stole that. And then it's like, who do you believe, or like, or do you justify it somehow?
I almost feel like you could connect this to the corruption too if you wanted to.
Ooh, how'd you do it?
Well, so the corruption has like this give and take relationship.
Yeah.
It could be like a fairly new spell where it's just like it's emulating the give and take from the corruption. I mean, you could do something where it's like if you cast the spell, if you maybe the spell is a third level spell. If you upcast it past third level, any creature within like 10 feet of you takes damage.
Ooh.
Like even allies.
Whoa.
And it's like, you're fueling some of this. Or it could be like any spirit within a certain area. It's like if you have, it could be just like a blanket. Like if a spirit within 20 feet of you has 20 hit points or less, it drops to 0.
Wow. Whoa. Oh man, that's cool. That's freaky. I wonder, like, makes me think like in world in our story, rangers are the kind of the first responders to the corruption, and maybe there's some like rangery spells that they found that when they were shooting arrows or fighting, or like marking their prey with the hunter's mark, it's like there was this. Now they found they because they were corrupted and they had this thing like inside of them, they suddenly gained like an intuition about how to like, maybe rangers that got like, they're like, I just need that extra bit of power to like just blast this thing, and then all of a sudden they just found it like, and it sucked in this energy from the spirit realm, or like their spirit buddy went, oh, like and then they were like, oh, what just happened? Like.
We could have, you could also have a character who's posing as like a friendly nurse or a doctor or like a medicine man who's currently living in the Blackwater wetlands and is helping people that are sick. Ooh. And it's just research. Yeah. Like they're making spells based off of what they're able to find from aiding these rangers and other people that are afflicted. And like maybe they've got a spell book full of notes, and maybe there's like 3 or 4 spells in there, but they're like, you don't like it. They're not nice spells. Yeah. Like this isn't a good person necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be a bad person who is discovered this thing, and they're realizing like, I could get lots of power. It could also be a good person that is like the road to hell is paved with good intentions kind of thing. It's like a slippery slope. Like they're discovering like this metaphysical law of how the spirit realm works.
What if it's a Dara? Oh shit. What if it's a Dara who's almost disconnected from the humanity of it and is just searching for the knowledge.
Yeah, it's just pure like curiosity, but they're being curious in a place that's super like, I love it. I love it.
We did okay. I think
we did 3 spells.
We did 3 spells and 2 characters.
But I think we came up with some really cool stuff.
Oh man,
is the puck?
The puck is calling. Okay. We did something.
We did a thing,
and that's the podcast. Well, thank you for joining this kind of disconnected pseudo NPC, pseudo spell podcast.
Obojima's writer's room.
That's how it goes.
That's what you get.
And also without Ari here to help write us.
Yeah.
We are two ships jumping several sharks all at once
on fire
in the night.
Yeah,
or however the saying goes.
Yeah. Ari is the gyroscope for our.
He truly is.
Yeah. Without him, we are rudderless at sea in a storm.
Wow. You just write that?
Yeah, I'm a writer.
You should.
I write.
I like think words. About doing that for a living.
Me like words.
On that note, thank you so much for joining us. You can check us out on other social media like Instagram, TikTok, Discord, and that's it.
Spotify?
You can find us on Spotify and Amazon Music and Apple Music.
Holy smokes. That's cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We will catch you next time where we talk about other things.
All
right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.